Today, a federal judge has accused the Trump administration of essentially ignoring his court order. And this has to do with the Trump administration putting a freeze on federal grants. After that was challenged in the courts, the Trump administration claimed that they had rescinded the freeze on federal grants. But it turns out that they didn't actually follow through on it, even though they claimed they had rescinded this action. So here's how the fight between Donald Trump and the courts went down. So last month, the Trump administration issued this memo outlining a freeze in federal funding grants. Now, the purpose of the freeze was to check whether federal programs were in compliance with Donald Trump's rules as it pertains to banning DEI practices. He also wanted to ban funding for renewable energy projects. Now, this caused widespread panic, and government officials scrambled to figure out what it all means and which programs would be impacted. At that point, 22 states and DC sued, which led to Judge John McConnell issuing a temporary freeze or a block on the Trump administration's federal funding freeze. Now, at that point, the Trump administration withdrew their memo. Essentially, they rescinded, based on their memo, this freeze on federal funding. But the judge found that while the Trump administration did withdraw the memo, they didn't actually end their freeze of federal grants. And so this post from the White House press secretary Caroline Leavitt stated that the freeze was actually still in effect. It's not like they were even trying to hide it. So this is what she wrote. This is not a rescission of the federal funding freeze. It is simply a rescission of the OMB memo. Why? To end any confusion created by the court's injunction. The president's executive orders on federal funding remain in full force and effect and will be rigorously implemented. So Judge McConnell argued that the Trump administration did not follow his orders and continued moving forward with their federal funding freeze, even though he had temporarily blocked it. On Friday, the coalition of 22 states alleged that despite McConnell's ruling, the Trump administration was in fact still withholding federal funds. The state said in a court filing that still frozen funds included about $7 billion in grant money for solar panels and $5 billion that supports greenhouse gas reduction measures. Again, this was money that was allocated by Congress. They have the power of the purse. The executive branch is not supposed to unilaterally block that money from going to where it is intended to go. By the way, this is obviously setting a terrible precedent, because what if Republicans have passed legislation that they want and it provides funding for organizations or projects that they want, and a Democratic executive branch says, nah, we don't like it, we're not gonna do it, we're gonna put a freeze on that money. Okay, so if you're celebrating what Trump is doing now, understand Democrats could do the same thing, and we don't want that situation, right? In a court filing Sunday, Justice Department lawyers said the administration had made good faith, diligent efforts to comply with McConnell's earlier ruling. They said the funds at issue were frozen because of a Trump executive order signed hours after he was sworn in that paused tens of billions of dollars in federal climate spending. So they're arguing, no. We're following through. It's just that there was another executive order and we continued freezing funding for projects having to do with like climate related priorities, okay? But so the Justice Department under Trump is saying, no, we tried. Like, we made a good faith effort to follow through on what you ordered us to do. It's just that there was some confusion here. The administration reasonably interpreted the temporary restraining order not to extend to that executive order, which wasn't challenged as part of the lawsuit, according to the Justice Department.
Yeah, the judge is not buying that, but at least they're trying to pretend to follow the order, which is important, because if they just said, go pound sand, then we got a constitutional crisis, because the executive branch must listen to the judicial branch. If they don't, we have no law and order at all. So now, what's the right way to do it? Easy. At this point, Republicans have the White House, the House, and the Senate. So if you don't like this spending that was already passed, that's too late. That's the law. It's the law. Do Republicans care about the law at all anymore? It's a good open question. So okay, now you go and you don't like that funding, you won. You have every right to say next time I don't want that funding, and you could win because you have enough votes. So now I don't like that. I don't agree with a lot of these decisions, but there's nothing we can do about that. You won the election. So it's actually super easy for the right wing to cut this funding the right way. And especially with Trump being able to bully the politicians, not only in the right, he gets some of the Democrats to vote for half this stuff, right? So why not do it the right way? Why say, no, I'm not gonna listen to the law, I'm gonna defy what Congress said, and now I'm gonna defy the judiciary? There's only one reason to do that, is because you want to build up infinite power in the executive branch. You want to ignore Congress and the courts so that you could do whatever you want. And whenever you give that much power to anybody or any office, you're gonna create tyranny. And so if you think, and you're a right winger, and you think, oh good, I wanna do tyranny against my opponents, I wanna do tyranny against the woke left, etc. You better hope that nobody else gets into power, because you just opened the door for tyranny. And don't ever, ever, ever complain to me about tyranny of government if you say the executive branch should be kings and they shouldn't listen to our form of government, our democracy, our Constitution. So just make up your mind. Do you love the Constitution? Do you love this country, or don't you? Because in our Constitution, we have 3 branches of government, and it's very clear how they work. So if Trump continues on this path of saying, I'm not gonna listen to Congress or the courts, we're all screwed. I don't know if he's gonna allow a next election, because this is exactly how tyranny begins, when he says there is no more law other than what the dear leader says. Thanks for watching the Young Turks, really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR, so those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.